Thanks for staying with us. So many business analysts and policymakers believe the amendment of the Company and Allied Matters Act, CAMA 2020, will tone down regulatory hurdles and ease the business environment to stimulate growth. According to them, business operations in the country has been simplified and investors will have more confidence doing business in Nigeria. Joining us on the show now is the Registrar-General Corporate Affairs Commission, Alhaji Garba Abubakar. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Good to have you again. It's always a pleasure having you on the show, sir.
Thank you so much. Good morning.
Right, so the last time you were here, we tried to thrash the issue concerning the churches and all that. But we didn't want to not pass this conversation without addressing the core improvements that CAMA brings to the business environment. And I'd like you to highlight some of these things, especially because we've gotten a lot of reports from various NGOs, various organizations that have complained of fraud, complained the fact that there's like vested interest in certain areas within the organization and they are handicapped in doing anything. So could you help us in a nutshell again, break down those benefits that we have failed to see of this act?
Okay, thank you so much. There are 4 key principles that the new Act seeks to achieve. 1, to entrench the various initiatives of the federal government on ease of doing business. 2, to provide for greater minority protection in companies. 3, to provide greater disclosure requirements for registered entities in line with corporate governance and accountability principles. And finally, to strengthen the regulatory powers of the CAC. As you may know, until this new law, to register a company under Part A of the 1990 Act, you are required to get a legal practitioner to depose a declaration that the requirements of the law has been complied with. That practice was actually inconsistent with the acceptable practices globally. Because in company formation process, the legal work is very insignificant. And that was actually adding to the cost of doing business. Under the World Bank Ease of Doing Business reforms, the World Bank measures countries based on cost, the number of processes, and the length of time it takes to register a company. Because of that requirement, we always have a situation where the cost of engaging a professional was even higher than the cost of registration of companies. So under the new law, that has been made optional. If you are the owner of your company, if you are the applicant, you can do what we call a statement of compliance. It doesn't have to be under oath. Once you sign that statement, then CAC will look at the document, and if it is satisfied, will go ahead and register the company. So you mustn't go through a lawyer to register your company again. Another key reform relates to the issue of minimum shareholders in a company. In the past, you require 2 persons to register a company. You don't have a choice. Even where you are the sole contributory to that company, you must get a second person because the law says you must have a minimum of 2 directors, a minimum of 2 shareholders. Under the new law, one person can register a company, and that company has all the powers of a limited liability company. It has perpetual succession. It can sue and be sued in its own name. It can hold properties in its own name.
What makes this?
Go ahead, sir.
What makes it different from having just a business name? Kindly just.
No. The difference between a company and a business name is a business name does not have separate legal personality. Where you are being sued in a business name, you are sued personally. The name only allows you to trade under that name and style. It's not different from you, but a company is different from you, even where you are a sole shareholder. So that company can survive you. It can exist in perpetuity. That's the difference. Then another key reform has to do with the issue of disclosure of persons with significant control, which means beneficial ownership. Nigeria has subscribed to the membership of various international organizations that promote transparency and anti-corruption. And globally, countries are interested in knowing who are the ultimate beneficiaries of registered companies. so as to check the activities, corruption, and other money laundering activities. In Nigeria, we didn't have a legal framework that provides for such disclosure until now. Because of the absence of that legal framework, we always had non-conformities under the Open Government Partnership membership, under the Extractive Industry Transparency International Commitment, and even FATF, the Financial Action Task Force. These were international bodies that Nigeria has joined, and they require countries that are members of these bodies to establish a publicly available register of beneficial ownership. We now have disclosure requirements for persons with significant control. We adopted the UK model of control as opposed to narrow definition of membership, because under the new provision, any person that holds 5%, at least 5% of the shares, or 5% of the voting right, or that controls the appointment of majority of the directors, or in any way exerts any form of influence or control on how the company is being managed, then he must disclose that status to the CAC. Immediately he qualifies as such.
Right.
This information will be provided at the point of incorporation, and whenever the company is filing annual return. We believe by this will strengthen our anti-corruption initiatives,
right.
and the register will be publicly available. Any member of the public can access this register.
Okay.
On minority, minority protection,
Okay.
particularly in relation to private companies, we have a new provision that says a private company cannot sell more than 50% of its assets or property without the approval of all the members of the company. In the past, the decision as to what to sell was vested in the directors. They can't do that now. So you can't just go ahead and sell the assets of the company, more than 50% of these assets, without the approval of all the members. Secondly, the preemptive right that hitherto companies usually include in their articles has now been codified. The law now requires that if you are a member of a private company, you can sell your shares outside the company without first offering these shares to the existing members. And it's only when they decline to buy that you can go outside. So these are necessary protection, at least for minority shareholders in these private companies. Then for foreign companies, in the past, the law says no company shall carry on business in Nigeria without registration. But a foreign company that is coming into Nigeria for a specific purpose, either on the invitation of government or any of its agencies, or on the invitation of any foreign donor or international organization, can apply for exemption from registration. They will be here for a temporary period, and when they leave after they have executed that project. In the past, you require the approval of Mr. President to get that exemption. The application has to be submitted to the Ministry of, to the Office of the SGF. That responsibility has now been vested in the Honorable Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment. We believe with this, it will make the process easier, and approvals can be obtained.
Let me pause you for a second and get a few more questions for you.
So let's go back to section 40 sub 1, the one that removes the legal practitioners, the charter secretaries and accountants on the compliance regulations on the registration. Now you've removed this set of professionals who over the years have built their businesses on this. How do you cater for that, the relevance of those people in setting up?
Okay, let me correct this impression. Chartered secretaries and administrators and accountants had never been under that provision. In fact, why CAC decided to include them amongst accredited agents of the CAC was because the analogy then was that when CAMA 1990 was passed, there was about 200,000 to 300,000 companies in the register. If CAC opened its doors to all these 200,000 to 300,000 companies and business names, it would be overwhelming. That was a manual system. So CAC now used the provisions on appointment of secretary that says to qualify as a secretary of public company, you can either be an accountant, a lawyer, or a chartered secretary, or a firm comprising either of these professionals. So CAC now using that analogy says, okay, let's restrict right of access to the CAC, and only lawyers, accountants, and chartered secretaries should be coming to do transaction with the CAC. But we are talking about ease of doing business. We are talking about global best practice.
Right.
So these lawyers, accountants, and chartered secretaries, their role will come after the company is registered. In fact, there is little or nothing to be done in terms of by these professionals in the registration process. Anybody can register his company, particularly now that the law says the minister can issue model articles. For the objects, you only need to state 1 or 2 objects. So to reduce costs, the concern is not even about the big companies. The concern is about the ordinary investor, the ordinary man that may not even have the capital to start his business. Sometimes he may have to borrow the money to even pay the registration fee. If you impose an additional burden on him to engage a professional, whose fees is usually higher than what you even pay to register.
Very correct.
That would really, yes.
Let me pause you for a second. Let me go on a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue this conversation with the registrar. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Thanks for staying with us. So we still have with us the Registrar-General Corporate Affairs Commission, Alhaji Garba Abubakar. Talk about a question for the break.
Yes, I wanted to ask you, sir, concerning some of the checks being provided for companies. How do we implement them? Like, can it be backdated for someone that the cases have already been settled, they've sold outside? What will be the process to get implementation? I'm talking specifically about the shares being sold to outside investors, where owners now take, outside bodies take ownership of a property that they had no reason to be involved in, while those that have minority share in the company are now kicked out. And that has happened many times before.
Okay, thank you. You know, there are provisions, a whole gamut of provisions dealing with minority protection companies, particularly private companies. The option open to any aggrieved person is to go to court. And if the court cannot reverse the transaction, he can be bought over from the company. His shares will be valued. If he can work with the other shareholders, his shares can be valued. But this new law will take effect immediately it is gazetted. So anything that happened before the new law came into effect cannot be reversed. You can resuscitate that. So as I have said, most companies, private companies, have provisions in their articles on preemptive rights and other protective provisions. Where those provisions are absent, then a shareholder cannot invoke that. The best open to him is to use the provisions on minority protection as provided in the law to assert his right before the court. And if the court found it is payable, then fine and good. Otherwise, the court may order that there were irreconcilable differences and his shares should be valued. Other shareholders can pay him off and he moves on.
Right.
Thank you.
All right, sir. So the new CAMA has made provision for reduction of filing fees for charges to as low as 0.35%. What does this mean for businesses? Can you?
Yes, this is actually a very significant reduction. Although if you look at the section closely, it says not exceeding 0.35% or such other amount as may be approved by the minister. So the minister can approve something higher, but I want to assure our stakeholders that we won't go beyond the 0.35%. So this is significant because the cost of credit, the amount payable was actually adding to the cost of credit. And on a compliance level, majority of those that borrow this money, they hardly come to register because the amount was huge. Imagine if you borrow 10 billion naira or 100 billion naira and you are required to pay 1%. And under the old regime, it was not just 1%. For public companies, they were actually paying 2%. So you can imagine if you go to borrow money, there is no distinction in the rate of interest between a private and a public company. But just because you are a public company, you are made to pay 2% of the total amount borrowed for registration with the fees. In addition to that, you have to pay stamp duty on the instrument. So this is a significant reduction. We hope with this, access to credit will increase and companies will be able to borrow money, carry on their businesses seamlessly. Thank you.
Let me take this call from Abule Egba. Good morning, sir. Are you there?
Good morning. My name is Apolua.
Good morning, okay. Go ahead, please. Welcome to the show. Okay.
All right. I want to ask the registrar a question. The question has to do with this dispatch company that was introduced. It's posing more difficulties, especially for post-incorporation, because if you want to file your annual returns, you have to send a document to the dispatch company. They send it to CAC. If there's a query, they send it back. It can be going back and forth like that. I don't know what's the plan to make it more easier for for their customers? Because it's posing a lot of challenges.
Thank you
That's my
very
question.
Thank you very much, Okwe. Registrar, did you get that question concerning the dispatch?
Yes, thank you, Doctor. You see, the challenge we have is these are unusual times. We can't open our doors to everybody because we have a responsibility to curb the spread of this pandemic.
Right.
And the system we have introduced is still a stopgap arrangement. Our target is to introduce end-to-end electronic system before the end of this year, so that you don't even have to come to CAC. You don't need to mail any document to us. You don't need to visit our offices. From the comfort of your home office, you should be able to submit your annual returns, pay online. If there are issues with the annual return, you will resolve it electronically. So this is a stopgap arrangement, and why we had to do this was because for customers in Lagos and other offices outside Abuja, even when they file in those offices, the documents have to be sent to Abuja, because we have majority of these records are still manually kept. So we are hoping that with end-to-end electronic system,
Right.
anything you submit will be treated electronically, and you get your results electronically. I can assure you we are working assiduously
Right.
to deploy an end-to-end electronic solution between now and the end of the year, and you should be able to do a transaction seamlessly with the CAC
All right,
without having to visit CAC. Thank you.
Let me take this call. Hassan from Lekki, go ahead, please.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
This is my question to the Registrar of Corporate Affairs Commission. It's a welcome idea. The CAMA is welcome by us. People that have nothing, have no skeleton in their cupboard, should be welcomed by all Nigerians. More especially in the aspect of registration, because we went through hassles to get companies registered in Nigeria. In the sense that more especially, if those companies are companies that require directors. Before, you must have directors. Now, you can run your company on your own. It's a welcome idea. You can be a single shareholder, which was not possible before. And we have been having problems even with our bank. When you open an account in the bank, you will see challenges in the bank. They knew it was merely just a formality for you to have directors. But you will see them challenging you about making sure that other people became signatories to your account. It's a welcome idea. May God help this government. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, sir, I'd like you to touch on the bigger picture, because we talked about the benefits.
Okay, yes. Talk about
the bigger picture, because we've talked about the benefits to individual businesses and companies. I'm also looking at it globally, and how does this reform actually change the perception of doing business in Nigeria? I would like you to touch a bit on the bigger picture of this new act.
Okay, thank you so much. You see, I have mentioned the principle behind these reforms. This law came after 30 years. And we couldn't just do ordinary amendment. We had to leapfrog to bring our law in line with the best practice.
Right.
And in doing that, we have to look at what was applicable in other jurisdictions as it relates to requirements for formation and management of companies, as well as the regulation of companies. We have a lot of changes, particularly the insolvency framework. We have a new arrangement under the insolvency framework, which is in line with the best standards that you can have anywhere, what we call company voluntary arrangement, where if a company has difficulty paying its creditors, it can approach the court to appoint an independent person to manage the affairs of the company, pay back the creditors. In doing that, that will preserve jobs. In the past, any company that borrows money was usually at the mercy of the lenders. The lenders may appoint a receiver. If the receivership fails, they go into liquidation. And most companies that had gone through the process of receivership in the past, they hardly survived the receivership. So this is a new innovation. Secondly, we have two legal entity types that have been introduced, limited partnerships and limited liability partnerships. This has given option to businessmen either to register a company, a business name, a limited partnership, or limited liability partnership. This is in line with the best practice that you can have globally. So now, for the first time, Nigerian laws are now consistent with what you have in advanced jurisdictions.
Gotcha. All right.
But the only thing that will give impetus to all these changes is having an electronic system that will allow you to do your transaction with the CAC.
Right.
If with these changes, we still continue with the manual system, then the benefits will not be realized.
Okay.
So this is why CAC is working assiduously. from anywhere in the world, you should be able to do a transaction.
All right,
As of today.
Cool.
Yes, okay, go
Let me
on.
pause you for a second. I have to go on a break. We'll be right back. Continue with you. Stay with us. Don't go anywhere. Thanks for staying with us. We still have the Registrar-General Corporate Affairs Commission, Alhaji Garba Abubakar. We have with us Tony from New York. Tony, are you still there?
Hello, my name is Zoe from New York.
Yes, thanks for calling. Go ahead, please.
Okay, I love the program. Thank you, ladies. You're doing a great job. I admire you all.
Thank you so much.
What I want to say is, first, to say something about the law that I find it very commendable. The CAMA law, I support it. I'm a Christian, and I support it to the hilt because I believe in accountability, and I believe that every new law will have its teething problems. So let's support this law and watch it pass through and support it through the teething period. I also want to say one more thing that I'm looking forward to you discussing the hefty allowance packages of our legislators. If Nigeria is talking about not having enough money to run the government, I think we should visit what they take home and cut that down instead of cutting down the money meant for IDPs in the camps.
Right.
That, I know that's out of point, but it's just part of my view.
All right.
I look forward to hearing that on this program, how we're going to revisit legislators' packages that they take home, those fat allowances.
Thank you very much, Tony. All right, we're going to take a few more tweets while we're getting back our guests.
So we have questions on Twitter for our guests. It said, why is it now compulsory to seek the consent of the Registrar-General before you can reserve names for incorporated trustees, unlike before? Then what is the process of getting a consent code and how long does it take? I'd like him to come back and take this. I think that summarizes all the questions.
Okay, so we're told that we're having a bit of connection issues with our guest. So maybe take a few more calls. But while we're getting calls,
I'd like to just come in to say that many business owners, many people have business interest, entrepreneurial interest, but they're worried about going around the process. So now, thanks to lockdown, thanks to the CAMA law, we have reviewed this thing. People can go out and venture into registering business, go to their websites. If you're having issues, you can come and complain. But many people are complaining without having studied the advantages this will bring. Yeah. Many people ask questions and complain concerning this law without knowing the entirety of the advantage. So research personally.
Without reading.
I have Cosmos from Germany. Cosmos, are you there?
Hello.
Thanks for calling. Go ahead, you're live.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Brown, Ms. Brown. Oh, I enjoy your program.
Thank you,
every
sir.
morning. CAMA law is a welcome development. We enjoy it. To register a company in Germany here, it could take you just a week at dawn. But in Nigeria, it's a big problem. That is why you see many people don't like to come to Nigeria because of the protocol and the way the business is being handled. Okay, for me, it's a welcome development, nothing more.
All right. Thank you very much, Cosmos.
I would have also loved to ask him about foreign direct investments because a lot of people want to invest in the country, but because of there's no ease of doing business. But I think with the CAMA law, things would have been it has been made easy for them. So let's hope that we're going to be having an influx of foreign investments.
CAMA improves the regulations of foreign direct investments. We have enough of them here, and I think there's no proper regulation.
You see how PNID ended up?
We are not regulating enough on those foreign investors here. So there are certain areas like poaching of our forests that is not allowed, but you have foreign investors here in guises doing those businesses here.
So we have, I think we have our guest back. Sir, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry.
We lost you for a minute. Okay, there's a question on Twitter for you. Nima is going to take that question for you.
Yes, there's a question asking that why is it now compulsory to seek the consent of the Registrar-General before you can reserve names for incorporated trustees unlike before? Then what is the process of getting a consent code and how long does it take?
Okay, thank you so much. Incorporated trustee is a different ballgame altogether. It's not like company, business names. Because of concern about proliferation of organizations or associations whose activities may constitute a threat to national security, we have to be careful with the kind of names that we allow and objects we allow to be registered as incorporated trustees. In the past, you submit your names through the normal process, which will be approved. But we had cases where after such approval, security agencies had raised concern. We had two options, either to reinstate the old practice, where before you register any incorporated trustee, you must send all the documents to relevant security agencies. They have to do vetting on the trustees, and it's only after they have sent a satisfactory report that CAC will go ahead and register. That process used to take 1 to 2 years to be accomplished. Or we introduce a requirement of consent. In the course of reviewing the consent, you will now know those that should be referred to security agencies, but majority that may not need to go to security agencies, you allow them to be registered. So we weighed the two options, and we consulted our customers on this, and we now settled for consent. The Registrar General approves the consent. Before he approves, he has to see the name and the objects, and even the name of the trustees. If from the names and the objects, there are no reasons to escalate to security agencies, consent will be granted, and the customer will receive his consent code. With that, he can go ahead, enter the name, and the name will be approved. On consent code, any name that the system tells you to bring a consent code, it means it is a restricted name. This is not just limited to incorporated trustees. Even names that has words such as national, federal, group holdings for companies, such names by law are restricted, and you require the consent of the Registrar General. You have to pay a separate fee to obtain this consent. When the name is approved, you can go ahead and register. But the process has been simplified. As I have said, we are working assiduously on end-to-end electronic solution. But until then, you can send your request by email to consent@cac.gov.ng, pay the consent fee through remitter, attach your application with the consent fee, including names of the proposed trustees and the key objectives for which the association is being established. Once we receive that, we'll process. In a matter of 5 days, you get your consent result. In the past, you get results, you get approval or disapproval within a day or two. But because of COVID and the restriction on number of personnel that are allowed to come to the office, we won't be able to maintain those service timelines. So we now give approval, consent within 5 days, as opposed to 2 days or 1 day in the past.
Thank you very much. So unfortunately, we have to wrap up at this point. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us this morning. I think we've learned quite a bit from you today. Many Nigerians seem to be happy with the act, and hopefully the implementation, as you said, would be completed with the complete digitization, you said, the end-to-end. Thank you very much, sir. We're speaking with the Registrar-General, Corporate Affairs Commissioner, Alhaji Garba Abubakar. Let's go on a break. When we come back, we'll discuss the hottest topic in Nigeria, the increase in pump price. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
You can watch Your View on TVC every Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. Nigerian time on DSTV channel 418, GOTV channel 27 and channel 47, StarTimes channel 121 and channel 307, Play TV channel 801 and channel 190, UHF 49, Sky channel 515 for UK viewers. Watch live on Facebook at TVC Connect and on our website tvcentertainment.tv/livestream.